Welcome to the Home Building Hub, your essential podcast guide to building your new home. Hosted by industry experts Colin and Darren Brennan, this conversational podcast will help better educate you about all things new home building so you can avoid costly mistakes and enjoy your building experience to the fullest, no matter which home builder you choose.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Home Building Hub. You're with Colin and co-host Darren Brennan, as always. Today we're going to talk about nomination blocks. So we're going to explain what they are, how they work, what the good things are about them, and what the risks are associated with them to better educate you on how you can get a pretty good deal, but how you can get it properly and carefully without taking too much risk. How you going today, Daz?
Man, I'm going great. I had a bit of a pause on my screen for a second. I've realised I've got too much internet running in the background. I'm shutting things down. So don't know if anyone saw any of that, but I'm scrambling a bit in the background right then. But we're good now. It's caught up, and mate, I think it'll fly like the last one. It'll just roll on through now, so we're good. But funny, mate. The technical challenges we have at times are certainly interesting. Anyway, on a nomination lot, talking about land, I wanted to just give a shout out to a friend from the industry, Jan Anthony. So Jan reached out to me on the back of one of our episodes and said that, probably felt like we were a bit unfair. And so Jan sells land in an estate called Trigena. And what I can tell you about Trigena is that over all the stages that they've released, only one of their stages is run late, and it was late by 3 months, and that's come from Jan. Outside of that, they have been on time every time. And so the point being that we mentioned in one of the previous episodes that you deal with a reputable developer, and we referenced some of the big guys, and we probably didn't reference some of the smaller guys. And what I will say, there's any of our friends out there that are with a smaller developer that are delivering on time, thank you. We really appreciate that. And congratulations for running a bloody good business. Jan, thanks for calling me out. I got your text. I haven't replied to you yet, but I will now that I've said this on here, and I'm hoping I can get a little snippet and just send you this video bit of this. But we do have a lot of friends in the industry, and we do sometimes talk about stuff that isn't going to please everybody. And so we're not here to offend anyone. We do this from the goodness of our hearts, and we do this to try and provide value to customers out there. So we certainly didn't mean to offend anyone. And if anyone else is in the same boat as Jan, where they felt a little bit like, hey, you've given us a bit of a whack there, that wasn't our point. There are some developers out there who do a bloody terrible job of delivering on time. I'm not going to call any of them out directly because I don't think they need a shout out, but they know who they are. And if you're one of those, do their best to actually tell people the truth, right? But if you're like Jan and are getting it right all the time or nearly all the time, that's all we can ask. And congratulations to you guys out there at Trigena, and keep up the great work. And Jan, thanks for being a fan of the podcast. We know you are, and we really appreciate the feedback. It's not the first time you've come to me with feedback, and I certainly really appreciate that. So thank you.
Nice. Yep. Well said. Well said. So yeah, it's more leads into this topic. So, I mean, for those who don't want to take the risk, go to a land office and speak to a land agent, because they will be able to walk you through the estate and provide you with everything you need to know risk-free. Here's the process, here's the contract, give it to a conveyancer, etc. So, leads into this topic, Darren, nomination blocks. That is not one you buy from a developer. Let's talk about what that is. So, nomination block is essentially you taking over someone else's contract before the land has titled or registered. So this means that someone has essentially bought the block, they've signed a contract, paid a deposit. The land doesn't yet, exist in theory. It's not yet titled. Therefore, they haven't settled on that land. They don't yet technically own that block. So we're going to go through today how it works, what are the benefits, and all that sort of stuff. So you're going to jump in there, Daz? What are you going to say?
I got caught on that same line earlier. It's not so much that it's titled, it's more that it hasn't settled. So you can nominate onto any real estate transaction if it's an allowable nomination, right? You can do that. It just hasn't settled yet into that new purchaser's name. And you go from there basically. But yeah, sorry to cut you off on that.
I'll get you to start with the next one. So Daz, let's walk through what a nomination is and how does it work?
Sure. So you sort of touched on it. Someone's already purchased the land. In this case, we're talking about land for this nomination, and they decide, for whatever reason, they want to sell that. They offer up the land for what's called nomination. So they're going to nominate a new purchaser onto that. Essentially, they're selling that block of land with the same conditions of what they bought it. What I mean by that is it's the same price. It's the same finance conditions, same settlement date, etc. Right? So all the conditions in the contract remain the same. You're assuming as the nomination onto that, those same conditions. You basically then sign a nomination form. It's just an extra form put together between your conveyancer and their conveyancer to take over the contract. You pay the original purchaser their deposit back. So you basically transfer their deposit. Now, again, work with your conveyancer, because some will want to put into a trust fund. Others will just say, pay the person directly. You work that out with your conveyancer. Your conveyancer is your legal representative. They'll work with you on that. You are now, you overtake that contract. You now are the contract holder, essentially. One bit in that, and maybe it's touched on later, I just can't remember whether we've put it in our notes, but if you're the seller, you are still responsible to the contract. So if the other person can't settle, the pressure's back on you to settle. Right, so just be mindful of that as well. So if the nominator, the person who's taken over the nomination can't settle, you still have the primary obligation to that contract. So, what are some of the benefits, Cole, of buying a nomination lot?
I think, Darren, to help explain as an example for people, because we have this discussion a lot with our clients. Let's say that I bought a block, Darren, and that'll lead to the benefits. Let's say I went to a land developer in 2022 and I picked out a block and I liked that block and I signed that contract and I paid a 5 or a 10% deposit, right? Let's just say for easy numbers, I paid 10 grand to the developer and I signed a contract. Now, that land is not titled or registered yet. It's still sitting there waiting to be titled, waiting for me to settle on that land when it does get registered and titled and it's ready to go. In the background, I could have just left it alone and just the block, or I could have spoken to a builder, got a quote, and also essentially got that process going. But for the simple example, let's just say we've done that part, Darren, and then I realized due to financial circumstances, it's now 2024. Something's happened in my life. I've lost my job, or just I've got more expenses, and I can't actually service that loan anymore. I'm now in a position where, I can't settle on that block. So I have the option to nominate the block onto someone else. Let's say that someone else is you, Darren. It means that you get to come in and you get to take over my contract as it stands. You get to pay the contract price that I agreed to back in 2022, which is one of the main benefits in most cases. You get the original contract price as listed in the contract when it was signed by the original owner, in this case, me. So there's a good price. Most of the time, nominations have a really good price advantage. Okay, so Darren comes in, he actually pays me back my 10 grand through a conveyancer approved setup, and then I can just go, okay, thank goodness, I'm out of that. I don't have to settle. I got my 10K back. Darren's paid me the 10K because I already paid the developer the 10K, so he's going to be looking like it's his contract, so that 10K is already paid by Darren. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense as an example, but it leads to the benefit. There's a great price, so if you can find a good nomination lot, my gosh, you can save, not 10 or 20, but sometimes 30 or 40 grand, because the price of that land, I guess back then, 2021 or 2022 or whenever it may be, could be substantially more expensive today, so if you went and bought a block from the land agent today. So that's probably the main benefit. The second benefit would be timing. So if you're in a situation where you just need maybe a couple of months to get your finance sorted, but you don't want to wait another 6 to 12 months for land, then you can come in and get a nomination that's expected to title, in the next 2 or 3 months. And then you don't have to wait all that time that the original sort of purchaser has been waiting, if that makes sense. So
absolutely,
there are probably two main benefits, Darren, I think, that, and hopefully we explain that okay. Let's talk about And just to be clear, we do this all day, every day. Like nominations in the current market are an excellent way to get yourself a good deal. There are some risks associated to it though, right? It's not for, everyone. The best path we would always recommend, go to a land agent because it's going to be the safest, I guess, most risk-free purchase, definitely. But if you're willing, if you're an investor, a first-time buyer, or owner-occupier wants to save a bit of money on land, here is one of the options you can take. So what are the things, Darren, that I guess, what are the risks associated with buying a nomination lot? And we've got a few there to go through.
Yeah, for sure. I guess one of the biggest risks is you're taking over that existing contract and those terms and conditions. So what that really means is it's probably going to be not subject to finance. So you want to make sure you got your finance in order, because the original purchaser may have had subject to finance, had 14 days or 21 days or 28 days, whatever it might have been. Most likely that time's already passed. So you're now signing an unconditional nomination to take over that unconditional contract. So that's one. There could be things such as, and in this current market, what we're also seeing is some developers are giving people time to nominate their lot after the title's ready. So, for example, that being the case, the land's already titled. They're just giving them a bit longer to try and find a buyer because they want the person to settle. They want that land to settle. All of a sudden, there's works going on around it, and there could be some missing pegs, the survey pegs on each corner of the block. And that might mean you need to get a re-establishment survey because there's missing pegs. That can add a little bit more money. You can't go back to the developer for that in that particular case. There may be a developer approval fee, required that's already been paid by the original owner, and for an original design, they've now decided to sell it. You're up for that cost. So there's certainly some of those costs. We talk further on some of the other risks as well, Cole. I think, and I'm jumping that only because there are some other funny business that can go on with this stuff as well. Make sure you've got a conveyancer, right, that can guide you through the nomination. They're your legal representative. They're going to give you good advice in that space. So at least talk to them before you sign it. And they're going to need to be involved in the nomination process anyway. But that should give you some, I guess, help along the way to make sure that you're not getting dudded in that. I've not seen many of them go wrong. In fact, I'm saying not many. I can't think of any that have really gone wrong, right? There are some times where there's a bit of funny business go on, and I don't condone that at all. So I wouldn't let any of my customers get into that space of funny business. I've got a friend who actually settled a nomination lot this week that I helped arrange for another friend. So I've got one friend who had a block, and I've got another friend who I've been able to get by that block. They've saved 70 grand. I got my first friend out of a bind who couldn't settle it, and my other friend's got a bargain, right? So that's a win-win. How good's that? That's a great situation. The other part for that developer is they got a block settled, which is, also good. So all parties won in that. They're going to build a home now. Everyone wins. So, there are some really good stories out of it.
Yeah, that's right. And it sort of leads, Darren, to, you mentioned having a conveyancer. Now, that's essential. Okay, now at the end of this, we're going to give you the 4 key steps to the process you take when you're going to get a nomination lot. But a conveyance is part of that process. And the first and foremost, you've got to make sure that there's a nomination allowed, that you can nominate that block to anyone, or they can nominate it to you. So when you get a conveyancer to review that, and the reason I say that, Darren, is sometimes developers now in their contract say, yeah, you can nominate, but only to a family member, right? So there's no point going to get yourself, pay for a conveyance and all that sort of stuff, or start preparing your build contract on a block that you only find out too late that you can't actually get it nominated to you because you're not a family member. So you want to just get a conveyancer to review the contract.
I'd also say get the original contract owner to ask, even if that clause is in the contract, in this current market, get them to ask, right? Look, I've got no family members who can take it over, but I've got a friend or I've got someone else who's really keen to. Would you be happy with that? Can you put that in writing? and then you might well be able to get it to happen, because we don't want to see people in a bind who've got a block of land. We've seen 13 interest rate rises, Cole, come through, and that's impacted people's ability to be able to settle these things. We don't want to see, as an industry, people caught with blocks of land, losing their deposits, having a sour taste in their mouth because, for whatever reason, they bought back then. Time hasn't allowed for them to be in a position to be able to settle. And so we want to try and work with people where we can. So, reach out to the developer via the original purchaser. May have to be through their conveyancer or solicitor, and say, can we look to nominate this to some other party other than a family member? Or can we just nominate it full stop, even though you've got no nominations allowed? And if they say yes, fantastic. Let's go get the show on the road and, try and find a buyer that'll pick up that block.
Yeah. Well, the developer will need to approve it anyway. So,
Absolutely.
That's a unavoidable step. It sort of leads to the next point, making sure that the timing works for you financially. So one of the things with nomination blocks is that a lot of people who come to the realization they can't afford to settle for whatever reason, they've realized it too late. And that land, let's say the example we used before, Darren, that land that I signed in 2022, it's due to title like in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm like, oh, crap. It's not enough time for someone to come and take it over the nomination and get finance in place and get a build contract in place. So in those cases, you just need to understand that you've got enough timing for you to nominate and take over the block, to get your build contract in place, and then to have your broker give them enough time to get your finance in place before the expected title and therefore the settlement of that block. Okay, so that's a step you need to take. So conveyancer, you've got to get them to review it, make sure everything's in line. And at the same time, you need the building consultant, sales consultant from the builder to make sure that you've got a house that fits it and get a quote and make sure the site costs are okay. But you must be talking to your finance broker to say, okay, here's the situation. Can you get me finance in the next 60 days? And the broker, yep, no problem. But I need your new home contract and I need your land contract by this date. That's what you need to put in place to make sure. And the reason for that is most loans are submitted together as a combined application. So getting your build contract organised in the background same time, Darren, is very important. Hopefully that makes sense. And I guess it's just one of those things for you to be aware of. Talk to the broker, make sure they're confident in the timing, and work. You got to work as a team, really, I find, Darren. So your new home sales consultant, your conveyancer, your broker, and the person who's nominating the block to you or their conveyancer, you must be in constant communication to make that all work together.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, Cole, even with this one that I organised for these two friends. Jesus, the middleman trying to help them out. I've had a lot of conversations to both ends because it's always they're nervous. The people selling it are under the pump. They're wanting to get out of this contract. They don't want to lose their deposit. We actually had another purchase on it originally that didn't proceed. Then they're panicking. I'm saying, look, relax. We'll get it to happen. The joy in that case was the land settlement was delayed slightly. That bought us a bit more time. The new purchaser who came in over the top of that, a friend of mine, he's paying cash, so he didn't have to go to the bank. He just needed a conveyancer in place so he can settle it, and he's paying cash, gave them their money. He was happy to release the money to them, so they had cash in their hand. I think they paid 30 grand in deposits. He gave them 30 grand cash in their bank, obviously. And it was just, the whole transaction's been a really interesting transaction, not as easy as you like, but it's been such an advantage. 70 grand. One person got out of their bind, the other guy saved 70 grand. Win-win. So
that's why you need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. A conveyancer who's done nominations, a broker who understands what a nomination is, and a sales consultant from a builder who's played the process and really the coaching role, where they've got the players being the broker, the conveyancer, the person nominating, and your client, you the client. You need to be able to control all of them, update all of them, make sure they're all going, smoothly. Otherwise, it can blow up. So one of the biggest risks, Darren, one of the biggest no-nos we're going to share with you, over to you, Darren. This is what you do not do.
Yeah. So a lot of people, when they're nominating blocks, they're wanting to sell their block. They want you to show up with a paper bag full of money. right, separate to the contract. So they might be asking for 10, 20, 30 grand in cash separate to this legitimate transaction, right? Make sure you don't get caught up in that. It's illegal activity. It's crap activity. If you're in a bind and you've got to sell it, right? Cool. Sell it by all means. Nominate it on. Well, we would encourage that. We don't want to see people caught out. But if you think then, here's my chance to make some extra money, avoid paying taxes, right? Doing the dodgy, getting cash money on the side, it's crap. Don't get involved in it. Find another nomination. There'll be another one out there if that's where you want to go, right? The other part is you're assuming that contract in its entirety, right? So if you then go, cool, I'll do that. I'll get involved in that. I'll pay, let's like give your example earlier, they paid 10 grand in deposit already. So you give them 10 grand in deposit and then you give them a paper bag on the side with 10 grand with a cash in it, right? And then you get to settlement and you can't settle for whatever reason. Your own circumstances have changed. This guy's got 10 grand of your money you can't even account for, and you've burnt 10 grand that you've given him in paying back his deposit. You're down 20. It's a crappy position that we wouldn't encourage at all. So, just don't go there. It is illegal, by the way. Those people doing it, I hope you get caught for tax fraud because it's fraudulent and it's tax avoidance. So we don't want to encourage it whatsoever. Steer clear of that. If they start talking paper bags full of money, start walking in the other direction.
Not worth it. Not worth it, Daz. Absolutely. So just to be clear, guys, when you take over a nomination, as part of that, you are agreeing to the original contract price that is written in the contract. So if that contract price is $293,000, that's what you are going to, from the developer's eyes, your finance point of view, that's what you're going to buy it for. Yeah.
You can, Cole, settle the land and on-sell it for a high price. So if you sell it for 100 grand and you think it's worth 200 and you can sell it for 200, you're allowed to do that. And you're allowed to make money on that. But what happens at that point is you've paid stamp duty on the original settlement. The new purchaser pays stamp duty on the new settlement.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, certainly in Victoria. On top of that, that gain that you made, you've bought it for 100, you sold it for 200, that's a gain of 100,000. You pay capital gains tax on the gain as required. So take out your costs, take out your taxational amount, and you pay tax on. If it's within a year, you pay tax on 100% of that profit, right, at your marginal tax rate. If it's within, after a year, you pay it on 50%, but you're going to be paying tax on that money, right? That's your due, but that also, even if you're paying tax on that, you've made a lot of money usually to do it, right? So well done, and we encourage and congratulate people anytime that happens. That's that windfall is a really cool thing, but just don't do it on the dodgy, right? We're all paying enough tax now. We're all the government's in bloody dire straits because we don't have enough bloody money at the moment, right? Do your bit and pay your tax.
Yep. So yeah, once you settle, it's your property. You can do with it what you will. So if you resell that, good on you. That's totally fine.
In summary, give us the 4 tips. How do we best do it?
Yep. So I guess it's more around here's the process you take. So if you're looking for house and land, looking to buy a block only, whatever it may be, here are the 4 steps you need to take. Number 1, if you find a block, here's where you can find them. You can go on Facebook Marketplace. You can go on Gumtree. You can go on realestate.com and you can find nomination blocks, for example. If you find a few blocks, they look like the price point's looking pretty good. You're talking back and forth with the owner about where it is and what it is, etc. Number 1, have a sales consultant from a builder look at the block for you. What they need to do is get the land documents and the engineering. They need to work out what the site costs are going to be and what home you're going to put on there, so you get a rough understanding of what the build quote's going to be. That's number 1. It's just getting not the final quote, but just an understanding. Yeah, that block looks pretty good. You can fit a 20 square on it. It's going to be about this ballpark. It's enough for you to go, yep, cool, that's within my budget. Number 2, talk to your finance broker to confirm a couple of things. A, can I build a house and land package for this ballpark price that the consultant's given me? Work out your finances obviously. B, can he or she, the finance broker, obtain the finance approval in the timing or the expected time frame for the titles to come through, or the expected time frame for you to settle. So it's going to settle, expected to settle in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You're not going to get finance in that time. You'll need to be a cash buyer. If it's 2 or 3 months, get your broker, say, yeah, guys, we can do that. If you give me a land contract, build contract in the next 4 weeks, then I'll get another 4 weeks to get everything sorted. No problem. I can do that. Get that confidence. Number 3, if the broker is saying everything looks good numbers-wise and time-wise, get the contract reviewed by a conveyancer. Okay, so you must do that. Conveyancer will give you the feedback, explain to you the good, the bad, and everything in between, and then work with your sales consultant at the builder, work with the conveyancer and the broker to keep everyone in the loop as we keep sort of sharing. Number 4, once all is okay, you found a block, you've got an idea of the house and the price is going to be on top of it. You've got a broker saying, yes, you can afford it, and yes, I can get the timing. You've got a conveyancer saying, yes, that land contract looks pretty good, that nomination's pretty easy to push through. This is most important. Do not sit and wait. Nominations get snapped up really quickly. Okay, if you've got a good one, act fast. If you've got the first 3 steps comfortable and ticked off, you should go and sign a nomination form, pay the deposit through the trust or whatever the conveyancer recommends, and snap up that block yourself. Get yourself the build contract worked out efficiently thereafter, and get yourself all that information to the broker so they can start with your finance. Okay, so I think that number 4 is pretty common. Sometimes I feel, Darren, clients need to lose a lot before they understand the urgency of having to get the next one. So they're the 4 tips. I think very helpful. That's the process. And like we said at the very start with your notes, I guess commentary around with Jan there, is that nominations are a great way to buy, and they're a great way to save a bit of money. We would encourage you, though, if you're a first-home buyer, you're just new to this and you're not quite comfortable with this process of nominations, please go and see your local land agents, see some officers and estates out in the greenfields, talk to them, view the master plan community, fall in love with it, pick a block and just buy through them direct, because it is much safer, much easier, much less risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was going to say something there. I've just lost it completely, Cole, so we won't go with that. But yeah, definitely, nominations are great. Dealing with land agents equally. Sorry, my point was going to be a lot of the land agents right now have got some really good discounts and some really good incentives as well. So if you're worried you're going to get the best deal, just go in and ask them. Got any incentives, got any deals going, and they might say, actually got block of the week, you're saving 20 grand or 30 grand, or we've got some special deal going on. So just have a chat to them. There's plenty of good deals out there in the market right now.
Very nice. I'm sure that's pretty insightful, pretty valuable for people, because it's definitely a process that new home buyers are not quite aware of, certainly don't quite understand well enough. It's so important that you I guess take the tips from this episode and the guidance to save yourself a few headaches down the track. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please jump on, leave us a 5-star review on the platform that you're listening on. Please share the podcast with one friend. That would be very helpful for us, Darren, wouldn't it? And if you do have any questions, any feedback, send us, I guess, a comment. Just go to homebuildinghub.com.au. There's a contact us option there. And that's about it, Darren. I think we've done pretty well, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Good on you, Cole. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Coolest Saturday morning in Ballarat.
Yep, beautiful. Thanks, guys, for watching or listening. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. And just our disclaimer, whilst we're all about providing value to you, this podcast should not be considered as legal or financial advice. It contains general information only, and you should seek out independent professional advice on your personal situation before making any legal or financial decisions.
1, 2.